We are going to do freeze-dried juices. Now, when you think about juices, like with me, the first thing that comes to mind is a good old orange juice. So I have some orange juice made from concentrate, which brings back some interesting memories because the very first batch of food I did with my freeze dryer when I got it from Harvest Right was orange juice. And what I did, I got frozen orange juice that's still frozen and took it out. So it's like a frozen cylinder, and then I cut it and slice it and put it onto trays and put it in my freeze dryer. And I tell you, that was the worst thing I ever did, because things that have high amounts of sugar have a tendency to crystallize and expand, and that's the problem with sugars. It's also the same thing that happens with Skittles, which are also high in sugar. So when you freeze dry anything that has sugar, the sugar crystals will expand quite a bit, and that's what happened to my orange juice, and it filled my entire chamber. So I'm going to show you what you can do if you want to do freeze-dried juices to keep the crystals from expanding so much. So we have orange juice, and we also have apple juice, which is also basically from concentrate. Now I also have some lemonade. It's really not a juice. I mean, people really don't drink lemon juice, they drink lemonade. But these are the only kind of juices I could find in my pantry. And then we have one of my wife's favorites, which is the Drink of Warriors prune juice. Now, if you don't know what the Drink of Warriors is, then you're probably not a geek.
Warriors drink.
But anyway, we're going to take these 4 juices and we're going to freeze dry them. But what we're going to do, instead of freeze drying them in pure form, which will cause a great deal of crystallization, we're going to water them down. And so the first batch that we're going to do, we're going to do a 1-to-1 ratio of juice to water. I have 1 cup of water, I have 1 cup of orange juice, and we're going to pour that into my measuring cup. And then we're going to put the trays in the freezer, or you could put the trays in the freeze dryer and then fill the trays while they're either in the freezer or in the freeze dryer. It just makes it easier to do it this way than trying to fill liquids into your Harvest Right tray, and then you try to carry them down to your freeze dryer or your freezer and they slosh out, and you just make a mess. So we're going to go ahead and pour them in place so they don't slosh around. One of the issues with doing fruit juices is they're sweet. They often have a lot of sugars, and these are natural sugars in many cases. But sugar, salt, and oils act like an antifreeze. So the more sugar you have in the liquid, it will actually increase the freezing point of that liquid. And that's one of the reasons why it's hard to do fruit juices in their natural form, is because they're so sweet. They don't freeze as well as like regular water, and because they don't freeze and then the vacuum hits it, that's when they start to crystallize, and they grow and they crystallize very rapidly. So that's why we're going to use the water. So we're going to go ahead and put the 1 cup of orange juice and 1 cup of water. Now, in our next examples we're going to increase the ratio of juice to water, but in this case it's going to be 1-to-1. So I'm going to go ahead and pour this into my tray along with the apple juice and prune juice and lemonade, and we'll do the first batch and take a look at the results. I'm at my freezer right now, and I have my liquid right here. I have my trays inside, and this could be my freezer, it could be my freeze dryer. So I'm just going to pull this out just a little bit. I'm going to get my apple juice with the water and just go ahead and pour it in. And you can imagine that if this was totally filled with 4 cups of liquid, and I tried to walk down to my pantry and put this in here, it would just slosh all over the place. So I have my 4 juices in here. I have my prune juice, my apple juice, my lemon juice, my orange juice. I'm going to leave these in here until they're frozen as much as possible, and then I'll go ahead and put them in my freeze dryer. These are the first results. of our juices on a 1-to-1 ratio. And this one right here is lemonade. And it basically kind of comes down to the success of freeze-drying juice is going to come down to the amount of solids that are going to be in the juice. Now in the case of lemonade, there's not a whole lot of solids, and you can see here that this is absolutely rock hard, and you can't see very much material in here. I mean, it has just a little slight sticky texture, but you really can't get anything out. And so lemonade, on a 1-to-1 ratio, probably it's not going to work. So we're going to have to increase this to a greater ratio. Now this right here is apple juice, and like the lemon juice, there's not a lot of material in here. You can see maybe just a little bit, but it's still quite kind of sticky to the touch. So on a 1-to-1 ratio, apple juice didn't do well. The next one is orange juice. Now orange juice has pulp and other stuff in it, and so you can see with orange juice we can actually get a little bit more material with the orange juice, and this actually came out pretty decent. So you can see here the orange juice actually freeze dried pretty good, but as soon as I touch it, it becomes sticky almost immediately. Orange juice is going to be very hygroscopic, which means it's going to have an attraction to moisture. So if you're going to freeze dry orange juice, you need to package it as soon as possible. So this material that you see right here is 1 cup of orange juice. So we're going to take this material and we're going to add a cup of water into it and see how it tastes. So here you have it, freeze-dried orange juice. Next up is our prune juice. Now prune juice has a lot of material in it. So here's 1 cup of prune juice. Now if you take a look at the comparison between the prune juice and the orange juice, there's more mass with the prune juice because the prune juice is concentrated down from regular juice. So it's more of a concentrate than the orange juice is. It has more mass, more particulates in it, and more fiber. That's the whole idea behind prune juice, is to help you in certain situations from all the fiber that's in the prune juice. So we're going to go ahead and reconstitute these and see how they come out. Now, one of the issues, I had to do a lot of scraping. Even if you put down a silicone mat, the liquid is going to go underneath the silicone mat. So if you're going to do prune juice and orange juice, yeah, you're going to have to scrape the trays out. But that's not a really difficult situation. It came up pretty good, and I have a small little spatula here. So that is one of the problems when you're doing juices. We have our orange juice and we have our prune juice. We're going to add back into this 1 cup of water. Okay, so now we're going to taste it and see how freeze-dried prune juice and orange juice tastes like. First, the orange juice. That tastes just like orange juice. Now, I'm a little bit reluctant to do the prune juice because when you drink prune juice, certain things will happen later on. So I'm just going to just a little bit of a taste. Yep, that tastes like prune juice, very sweet. So it is possible to do juices. The more material that's in the juice, the better the juice is going to turn out. Orange juice was successful, prune juice was successful. I would imagine fresh grape juice would also be something that would be successful. The clear juices like the apple juice doesn't have a lot of material in it. I'm going to still try to do apple juice, but this time I'm going to do it in a 1:2 ratio. So 1 cup of apple juice to 2 cups of water. And I will try to do the lemon juice again on the same ratio and see if we can get that to behave a little bit better. We're going to continue on with the tests as we did previously, but instead of doing a 1:1 ratio, we're doing 2:1 ratio. So we got 2 cups of water, 1 cup of juice, and this is the apple juice. So I'm going to go ahead and walk this down to my freezer and pour this in the tray. And we have the orange juice. Now it doesn't matter how much water we add because the freeze drying process will remove any extra water. And we have the lemonade. Now the more water we put in to the juice, the more room it's going to give the sugar to crystallize and to expand when there's a vacuum on it and it becomes heated. And last but not leastly, the prune juice. So these will all go through another cycle and we'll take a look at the crystal structure when it's done. 28 hours later, we have our first batch right out of the freeze dryer, and this is the apple juice. Apple juice just has a lot of sugar, and because of the amount of sugar, this stuff is just glossy and sticky and is really not doing much. Apple juice is pretty much a failure. It's just incredibly hard to do apple juice because of the amount of sugar. Next up, orange juice. Now orange juice actually does a pretty decent job. So this orange juice right here is a 2:1 ratio, and if you remember how hard it was to scrape the orange juice last time, because there's more room for the crystals to grow on a 2:1 ratio, the orange juice actually comes up a lot easier. So the question is, why would you want to freeze dry orange juice? Well, if you're really into orange juice, I mean really into orange juice, it could be worth it. But as a component, orange juice would actually be worthwhile to freeze dry because there are a lot of recipes that call for orange juice. The first one that comes to mind are orange rolls and orange cinnamon rolls. Those are some of the ones that we use quite a bit. In Oriental cooking, orange juice is used quite often for orange chicken. So here we have freeze-dried orange juice. And if you take a look at the structure, because of the extra water, the crystals, the sugar crystals were able to grow quite a bit, and it turned out very well. And you could actually crush this down into a finer powder than what it is right now. But orange juice is very easy to freeze dry if diluted with water. Next up, can you guess what this is? This is our lemonade, and it comes down to very little, but you can see that this is still pretty hard to scrape. If you remember the first time we did this, this was very shiny and hard to scrape, and it's still hard to scrape. So that's basically lemonade, and primarily it's going to be lemon and sugar, not a lot to it. But in a 3:1 ratio, the more water you put in here, the easier it's going to be. But it's going to get to the point where if you do 4 cups of water, or 4 parts water, 1 cup lemonade. I mean, what's the purpose of it? It just isn't worth the power and the time for the freeze dryer to run through all that to get 1 cup of lemonade. So it's just not worth it. And then we have the prune juice. Now, like orange juice, prune juice does have its purpose in life. Now, why would you want to do prune juice? Well, prune juice has that magical medicinal properties, and unless you want to freeze dry plums or prunes, this would be the next best thing. So as you can see, prune juice, which is extremely heavy with sugars and is extremely sweet, can also freeze dry pretty good because of all the fiber in it. So there's the prune juice. When it comes down to it, a few juices are worth freeze drying. I was thinking about doing V8 juice, but you can make V8 juice pretty simple with tomato powder. But orange juice is easy to freeze dry. Prune juice is easy to freeze dry. So it's just something you should try and experiment with. Start with a 1-to-1 ratio of water and juice. And if it's still kind of hard and doesn't come out quite right, go to 2 parts water, 1 part juice. And I'd probably leave it there. You could go even more to a 3-to-1 or even to 4-to-1. But at that point, you're going to be filling up your entire tray, and you're not going to get a very big yield. Where with these 2 juices, prune juice and orange juice, everyone knows it doesn't take a lot of prune juice to go to work. And with recipes, most recipes don't call for a great amount of orange juice in the recipes, maybe a half a cup, maybe a cup at the most. And they rehydrate pretty easy. There you have it. Orange juice and prune juice from freeze dried. It works, and it can work for you. So this is just one more thing you can add to your inventory, and especially if you use component cooking. Orange juice can be used in lots of recipes, and prune juice has great medicinal value. So there you have it. I hope you learned something, and I hope you try this out and see how it works for you. I'd like to thank you for your time, and as always, please subscribe, and I will send another video to you soon, and go forth and freeze dry the world.